Panel. Neera Tanden is the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress and domestic policy advisor to President Joe Biden. And Jon Fleischman, California political strategist and former executive of the California Republican Party. Welcome to you both. Neera, welcome to the show for the first time. Nice to have you out west.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As a UCLA graduate, welcome back home.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be out in California, I'll be at a time where it's going to really snow in D.C.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be 70 degrees here this weekend. Jon, what do you make of this sort of idea that President Trump is frustrated by sort of losing the narrative here?
Well, I mean, President Trump gets frustrated anytime he loses the narrative, right? Because he's very focused on narrative and what that is. But I mean, again, the country's divided. You got half the country who thinks that illegal immigration is a problem and you should do something about it. And you got half the country who thinks somebody who's committed illegal entry, it's like a parking ticket, and therefore it's all overblown. So if you've got, under the Biden administration, you had 11 million interactions at the border and Trump shut down the border. And so you had protests there, and now you've got, you're going to have protests on these kinds of policies.
Do you think, though, that President Trump has lost the narrative?
President Trump changes the narrative around all the time. So he's a very bombastic character.
What do you think, Neera?
I mean, I actually think that a lot of the country wants to have a secure border. I don't think it's 50% say open the border, 50% close the border. There's actually a strong majority in the country for securing the border, but also treating people with dignity and respect, and not violently assaulting U.S. citizens or separating 5-year-olds from their parents, or using, the fact that we even have allegations that the government is using a 5-year-old as bait against their parent.
Which they deny.
They deny, but the school system says that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I think the fact that this is happening is actually enraging a majority of Americans, which you see in polls are people who want secure borders, and I think they are right to want that. But actually what's happening in Minnesota has nothing to do with securing our borders.
It seems like there's kind of two potential things that are competing with each other. One, some of these scenes of chaos may be good for immigration hardliners in the administration who really want people to self-deport.
Right.
And this idea of chaos says to them, you're not welcome here, get out before this happens to you.
Well,
That's one thing. The other thing, though, you've got Donald Trump, the TV producer, who for so many years sees images based off of how they look on TV and knows that's not good TV.
I think as a practical matter, one of the challenges you have in states like Minnesota, cities like Minneapolis, these sanctuary city states, the reality is local law enforcement should be working with ICE to go after these hardcore criminals, and they don't, and then there's complaints. I mean, ICE is not the best people to go after these hardcore criminals, but the reality is the local law enforcement will not use somebody's immigration status to target them and deport them, even if they've committed further crimes. They just won't do it. And so literally, I kind of roll my eyes because the same people that are complaining about these tactics will not allow local law enforcement to get out there, work with ICE, and figure out a better way to do this, because nobody thinks that these hardened criminals should be on the street.
I mean, but look at what's happening here. Just to be honest, they aren't going after hardened criminals. They're really, they're targeting people that have no record. They're basically going after, what is the point of going after a person who's 80 years old? The child that they're targeting? I think the real challenge,
targeting those people.
I think the challenge is that this has moved way beyond criminals. And it seems like, I think your point is actually right. What they're trying to do is scare people and want them to leave. But what they're ending up doing is victimizing a lot of people, including you have a militarized force that shot a white woman, Renee Good. So obviously this is out of control.
Couldn't you both be right, though? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't John's point, though, that if you were to go behind bars and cooperate, that maybe you wouldn't have to be out there in the streets doing some of this stuff?
My point is that the reality is you can use much less force to go after criminals. The idea that there are more ICE enforcement officers than police in the city of Minneapolis tonight,
again, that's
terrorizing people. I'm sorry, when they have half the number of illegal immigrants in Minneapolis than they have in other communities. That is not about law enforcement. And I'm sorry, most people don't think it is law enforcement. And the reason why the president is losing the narrative, and he understands that he is because these images are making Americans oppose ICE overall.
I think the reality is you've got thousands of ICE operations going on. And yes, a few of them have gone screwy. And I agree, it's not okay. But the reality is this is when you should be deploying local law enforcement. A lot of people feel that someone who's in the country, who's broken into the country, came here when they knew it was wrong, shouldn't even be here. And so you get this big challenge, and it's a divisive issue. But I mean, the reality is if you're going after a hardened criminal and he's got his 5-year-old kid with him, does that mean, oh, you know what, you're wanted for a terrible crime, we're not going to bring you in? No, they bring in the 5-year-old child.
Do we know that this person was a hardened criminal?
Yes.
I don't know the details, but I'm saying, you know,
Well, it matters. It matters if he was just undocumented versus a hardened criminal.
Well, do you know the answer to that question? I don't know the answer to that question.
I think they would have told us by now, given all their spinning,
you know,
that
like
he
I
was
said,
a hardened criminal.
the reality is a lot of this would be
I think that's true too. But let's talk about another issue now as we sort of look back on this week. President Trump on the world stage. We talked about that a lot. It was interesting also to see Governor Gavin Newsom on the world stage. President Trump gives this big speech in Davos. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is in the back, sort of watching it. And then some reports that the two of them actually exchanged pleasantries backstage. It was the first time that they had talked in several months. And then this Atlantic article came out. It's getting a lot of buzz. Put this up on the screen. Talking about making the argument that Gavin Newsom's record is a problem. That's the Atlantic argument, suggesting that his California leadership is going to be a problem for him. What do you make of this article? It's kind of unusual to see the Atlantic go so hard against a Democratic leader.
Well, I actually thought the biggest news of this week was really Gavin Newsom's, trolling the president of the United States, really responding in real time. And I think a lot of Democrats are looking for leaders who are willing to take the fight to Donald Trump. And Gavin Newsom has been willing to do that, not just in the United States, but in Davos. When so many European leaders are cowering, he was really demonstrating how you showed that leadership. Now, to the Atlantic piece, I think there's a lot of people who are interested in making the presidential election today. A lot of Democrats are anxious about the current president, want to zoom forward. So that's why I think there's a lot of shadow boxing, or how.
And one of them might be Gavin Newsom, based off of the way he acted this week. Yeah.
But I also think, look, he defended his record in Davos. He said California is the place that has the most Fortune 500 businesses. The innovations in America are happening there and happening here in AI, everything else. It's a state where you have a high minimum wage, you have high, and still a strong, robust middle class. So I think the truth is he's going to have to defend his record. Yeah. But I think a lot of Democrats look at California and say it's a Republican talking point to attack it.
Well, I think you're about to make that talking point, because you wrote an article today suggesting that he doesn't go far enough.
Well, I mean,
the Atlantic didn't go far enough.
So the point.
This is your animation,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Tell people where they can watch get your stuff.
Yeah, you go to www.sodoesitmatter.com.
Yeah.
So that's where you can go. But the reality is we're talking about a state with a massive budget deficit. We're talking about a state that's had tremendous fraud, huge waste on a high-speed rail that has not laid any track. And so the whole point is that with all of the problems that California is having, this governor is so interested in being president that instead of being present here in this state working to solve problems, he's flying across the country, using your words, trolling Donald Trump. He's not running against Donald Trump. By the time he runs for president, someone else is going to be running.
You don't know that.
I do know that. So I feel pretty,
the Trump 2028 hats that he hands out in the Oval Office.
My biggest problem with the Atlantic is that they don't really point out that, to any great extent, the fact that Gavin Newsom is now going out there trying to pretend he's Mr. Moderate. Like he says, hey, I think it's unfair when biological men play in women's sports, but then he actually supports the legislation to do that. And so I think it's awkward.
Neera, you spend so much time with the most powerful people in D.C. and the party. You worked for 3 presidents yourself. What's sort of the inside buzz? What are people saying behind the scenes in that circle about Gavin Newsom?
Look, I think Gavin Newsom has shot up to the top of the presidential discourse or discussion because he's moving up in the polls in these polls that are way out early. He's number 1 or number 2. And as a person who's never run before, that's pretty impressive. And I think, honestly, the reason why that is happening is because people in the Democratic Party see CEOs that cower, universities that cower, Republicans who refuse to defend the Constitution, and they want and are really desperate for a leader who will take the argument to Trump, who will recognize some of these things that are happening in the country are not normal. And he speaks to that every day. And he is strong on his feet. He matches wits. He will have to defend his record. But I also will say, just the idea that we're all going to attack California, I think, again, that will sound a lot like Republican talking points to people.
And he's very good at getting attention, which is a big part
Yes.
of winning in
I just
politics.
think-
I have
If you-
learned.
I
I
think
have
real-
learned.
I just think if you look at his record in California, it's not going to sell to centrist and center America voters.
We will,
just won't.
we will
Well.
see. There's been one Democratic nominee from California, Kamala Harris, and we saw what
And a
happened there.
Republican,
Yeah,
and a Republican
cou-
president
yeah,
for
a couple-
California.
A couple,
Two.
Richard
Republican
Nixon and
too,
Ronald
yes,
Reagan.
yes, yes.
All right, Neera and John, thank you so much. You might visit the Reagan and Nixon libraries while you're here during your California trip. Thank you so much. We've got quite a story.